You ever wonder why some women walk into a room and instantly command respect without saying a word, while others keep giving, loving, proving, and still get taken for granted? Let me tell you something, it's not luck, it's not beauty, and it's definitely not about chasing a man down. It's about how you show up. See, a man doesn't decide your worth, you do. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. I'm talking about a shift so powerful that the same energy you used to beg for starts coming to you naturally. Attention, effort, respect without you asking twice. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. Being treated like a queen isn't about finding the right man first. It's about becoming the woman who requires that treatment. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. You set the standard, not, let me tell you something that might shake you a little bit. The way a man treats you is not random, it's not confusing, and it's not something you have to decode like a mystery. It is a direct reflection of the standard you allow. See, a lot of people walk into relationships hoping to be chosen, hoping to be liked, hoping to be enough for somebody else. And in that process, they start bending, adjusting, and shrinking parts of themselves just to fit into someone else's life. But the moment you do that, you've already lowered the standard without even realizing it. You've told them without saying a word, I'm willing to accept less than what I truly deserve as long as you stay. And let me tell you something, people don't rise to unspoken expectations, they fall to what you tolerate. When you don't define your value, someone else will define it for you, and most of the time, they will define it lower than it should be. That's why you have to walk in already knowing who you are, what you bring, and what you will and will not accept. You don't wait for a man to decide your worth. You don't sit there analyzing his behavior, trying to figure out if you're good enough. You already know you are. And that confidence changes everything about how you move. It changes your tone, your energy, your presence. You don't over-explain yourself. You don't chase clarity from someone who is being inconsistent. You don't negotiate your boundaries just to keep someone comfortable. Because your standard is not something that gets adjusted based on who shows up in your life. Your standard is the filter that decides who gets to stay. And here's the part most people struggle with. You have to be willing to lose someone who doesn't meet that standard. Because if you're not willing to walk away, then your standard isn't real. It's just words. A real standard requires discipline. It requires you to say no when it's hard, to step back when your emotions want to hold on, to choose yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. And when you start doing that, something powerful happens. The wrong people naturally fall away because they can't meet what you require. And the right man, he doesn't feel intimidated by your standards. He respects them. He sees them as a blueprint, not a barrier. He understands that in order to be in your life, he has to come correct. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want to teach a grown man how to treat you. You don't want to constantly remind someone of your value. You want someone who recognizes it without you having to fight for it. But that only happens when you set the tone from the very beginning. When you show through your actions that you are not here for confusion, inconsistency, or half-hearted effort. You are here for clarity, respect, and intentional love. And if that's not what's being offered, you are perfectly fine walking away with your head high and your self-worth intact. Because at the end of the day, the standard you set is the life you live. If you set it low, you will constantly feel drained, unfulfilled, and questioning yourself. But if you set it high and stand on it without apology, you create a space where only the right kind of treatment can exist. And that's when everything changes. Not because men suddenly become different, but because you no longer accept anything that doesn't align with who you truly are. You don't chase, you at a track, let me be real with you. Chasing a man will never put you in a position of power. It will only place you in a position of anxiety, doubt, and constant overthinking. Because the moment you start chasing, you're no longer being chosen for who you are. You're trying to convince someone of your value. And anything you have to convince someone about will never be fully respected. See, chasing looks like overtexting when he pulls back, making excuses for inconsistent behavior, always being the one to initiate, and bending over backwards just to keep his attention. And while you think you're showing effort, what you're really showing is that you're willing to do all the work. And a man who doesn't have to work for you will never fully value you. That's just the truth. People appreciate what they invest in, not what is handed to them freely without effort. Now, attracting, that's a completely different energy. Attraction is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about genuinely having a life that does not revolve around someone else's presence. It's about being so rooted in your own purpose, your own growth, your own happiness, that you are not looking for someone to complete you. You are already complete. And when you operate from that place, you move differently. You don't jump to respond to every message like your life depends on it. You don't rearrange your entire schedule just to be available. You don't feel the urge to prove your worth because you already know it. Instead, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You invest in your goals, your passions, your peace, and what happens is powerful. Naturally become magnetic. People can feel when someone is secure within themselves. They can feel when someone is not desperate for validation or attention. And that energy draws the right kind of people in. A man who is serious, who knows what he wants, who values quality, he is naturally going to be pulled toward a woman who is not chasing him because he recognizes that she is not easily accessible to just anyone. And that makes him step up. It makes him pursue. It makes him show effort because he understands that if he doesn't, someone else will. But here's the key. You have to be okay with not being chosen by everyone. Because when you stop chasing, you will notice that some people fall off. Some people won't put in the effort. Some people won't meet you halfway. And that's not rejection. That's clarity. That's life showing you who is not aligned with you. And instead of trying to pull them back in, you let them go with peace. Because attraction is not about holding on tightly. It's about allowing the right people to come naturally and the wrong people to leave effortlessly. And the more you practice this, the stronger you become. You stop seeking validation from external sources and you start creating it from within. You stop feeling like you have to earn someone's attention and you start realizing that your presence is already valuable. And when a man sees that you are not chasing him, not begging for his time, not trying to force anything, it does something to his mindset. It makes him curious. It makes him respect your space. It makes him want to step into a position where he earns access to you. Because deep down, he understands that anything worth having requires effort. So instead of exhausting yourself trying to be seen, heard, and chosen, shift your focus inward. Build a life that excites you. Become someone you are proud of. Protect your time and energy like it matters, because it does. And when you do that, you won't have to chase anything that is meant for you. It will recognize your value and come toward you with the same level of intention, effort, and respect that you already have within yourself. You master your emotions. Let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear. Your emotions are powerful, but if you don't learn how to control them, they will control you. And when your emotions are in control, your peace becomes unstable. Your decisions become reactive, and your value starts depending on how someone else behaves. That's a dangerous place to be. Because now, instead of standing strong in who you are, you're constantly shifting based on what he does, what he says, or what he doesn't do. 1 minute you're confident, the next minute you're questioning everything. One text can make your day, and one delay can ruin your mood. That's not power. That's emotional dependency. And a woman who is emotionally dependent will always struggle to be respected because her reactions become predictable. If he pulls back, she chases. If he goes silent, she panics. If he acts distant, she overthinks and tries harder. And once a man sees that he can control your emotions, whether intentionally or not, the dynamic shifts. You're no longer operating from strength. You're operating from reaction. But when you master your emotions, everything changes. You don't react immediately. You don't let temporary feelings make permanent decisions. You create space between what you feel and how you respond. And in that space, you find clarity. You start observing instead of assuming. You start paying attention to patterns instead of getting caught up in moments. You realize that not everything requires a reaction, not everything deserves your energy, and not everything needs to be fixed right away. That calmness, that control, that ability to stay grounded when things are uncertain, that is where your power lies. Because now, instead of being pulled into emotional chaos, you remain steady. You don't lose yourself trying to understand someone else. You don't beg for reassurance when something feels off. You step back, you assess, and you let actions reveal the truth. And let me tell you something. Nothing commands respect more than emotional discipline. When a man sees that you are not easily shaken, not easily triggered, not easily manipulated, he approaches you differently. He thinks before he acts. He becomes more intentional because he knows you are not someone who can be controlled through confusion or inconsistency. But mastering your emotions doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It doesn't mean pretending everything is okay when it's not. It means you acknowledge your feelings without letting them take over your behavior. You feel, but you don't fold. You care, but you don't lose control. You stay connected to yourself no matter what is happening around you. And that requires inner work. It requires self-awareness, patience, and discipline. It means asking yourself, am I reacting from fear or responding from strength? It means understanding your triggers and choosing not to let them dictate your actions. Because the truth is, not every situation deserves your emotional investment. Some things are meant to be observed and walked away from, not argued over or chased down. And when you start operating from that mindset, your entire energy shifts. You become more peaceful, more confident, more in control of your life. You stop riding emotional highs and lows based on someone else's behavior, and you start standing firm in your own stability. And that's when respect naturally follows, because people can feel when someone is grounded, when someone is not easily swayed, when someone chooses composure over chaos. And in that presence, there is strength, there's confidence, there's power. And that power is what makes a man see you differently, not as someone he can play games with, but as someone who knows exactly who she is and refuses to let anything or anyone disturb her peace. You have a life outside of him. Let me tell you something that changes everything the moment you truly understand it. A man should never become your whole world. He should only be a part of it. The problem is, a lot of people meet someone they like and immediately start rearranging their entire life around that person. Their schedule changes, their priorities shift, their focus narrows, and before they even realize it, they have placed someone else at the center of their universe. And that's where things start to fall apart, because when your life revolves around one person, you slowly lose your sense of self. Your happiness becomes dependent on their attention. Your mood becomes tied to their behavior. And your sense of stability begins to fluctuate based on how present or absent they are. That kind of energy creates pressure, not attraction. It makes you cling tighter, try harder, and overextend yourself just to maintain the connection. But here's the truth. Nothing is more attractive, more powerful, and more respected than a woman who has her own life, her own purpose, and her own direction. When you have a life outside of him, you are not sitting around waiting for a text. You are not constantly wondering what he's doing. And you are not putting your growth on hold just to be available. You are busy building something meaningful. You are investing in your goals, your passions, your career, your health, your mindset. You are becoming someone you are proud of, with or without a relationship. And that independence shifts the entire dynamic, because now your presence is not based on need, it's based on choice. You are not with him because you have nothing else. You are with him because you want to be. And that difference is everything. It removes pressure, it creates balance, And it allows the relationship to grow in a healthy way instead of becoming suffocating. When a man sees that you have a full life, he respects your time more. He understands that your attention is not easily given, that your energy is valuable, and that being part of your life is a privilege, not something he can take for granted. And here's something important. You also protect yourself emotionally when you have your own life. Because no matter what happens in the relationship, you still have your foundation. You still have your goals, your routine, your purpose. You are not left feeling empty or lost if things don't go as planned. You remain grounded in who you are. And that kind of stability is what keeps you from making desperate decisions. It keeps you from tolerating behavior that doesn't align with your values just because you're afraid to be alone. Because you're not alone. You have yourself, your life, your direction. And when you truly embrace that, you stop seeing a relationship as something that defines you, and you start seeing it as something that complements you. You don't need constant validation. You don't need to be in constant contact, and you don't need to prove your worth through overgiving. You show up fully, but you also maintain your individuality. And that balance is what creates long-term respect. Because a man cannot truly value you if you have lost yourself in him. But when you stand firm in your own identity, when you continue to grow, evolve, and pursue your own path, you become someone he not only desires, but also respects deeply. He sees that you are not dependent, not easily swayed, and not willing to abandon yourself for the sake of the relationship. And that makes him step up, not out of pressure, but out of appreciation for the woman who knows how to stand on her own while still allowing someone to walk beside her. You walk away when necessarily, let me tell you something that most people struggle to accept. The real power in any relationship is not in holding on, it's in knowing when to let go. Because anybody can stay. Anybody can keep trying, keep hoping, keep making excuses for behavior that clearly doesn't meet their standards. But not everybody has the strength to walk away when they realize they are no longer being valued the way they deserve. And that right there is the difference between someone who gets respected and someone who gets taken for granted. See, when you stay in situations that drain you, confuse you, and consistently disappoint you, you are silently telling the other person, this is acceptable. You might not say it out loud, but your actions speak louder than anything you could ever explain. Every time you tolerate inconsistency, every time you forgive without change, every time you give another chance without new effort, you are lowering the standard you once set. And over time, that becomes the norm. The respect fades, the effort decreases, and you find yourself stuck in a cycle where you are giving more and receiving less. Now, here's the hard truth. You cannot be treated like a queen in a place where you are acting like an option. It just doesn't work that way. Respect requires boundaries, and boundaries require consequences. And sometimes the only consequence strong enough to create change is your absence. Walking away is not about anger. It's not about proving a point, and it's definitely not about trying to make someone chase you. It's about choosing yourself when the situation no longer aligns with your value. It's about having the clarity to recognize that love without respect is not enough. Attention without consistency is not enough. And words without action are not enough. And once you see that clearly, you stop negotiating with things that don't meet your standards. You don't sit there arguing, trying to convince someone to treat you better. You don't keep explaining your worth to someone who refuses to see it. You simply remove yourself. And that takes strength because emotions will try to pull you back. Memories will try to make you reconsider. Fear will try to convince you that you might not find something better. But you have to understand this. Staying in something that is not right for you is far more damaging than walking away from it. Because every day you stay, you are reinforcing a pattern that goes against your own self-worth. And when you finally decide to walk away, something powerful happens. You reclaim your control. You remind yourself that you are not stuck, that you have choices, that you are capable of leaving anything that does not serve your growth. And that shift in mindset changes everything. It rebuilds your confidence, it strengthens your boundaries, and it sets a new standard for what you will accept moving forward. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. A man pays attention to what you tolerate, but he also pays attention to what you walk away from. When he sees that you are willing to leave rather than settle, it forces him to see you differently. Not as someone who will always be there no matter how he shows up, but as someone who values herself enough to walk away when necessary. And that kind of energy commands respect. But even beyond how he reacts, the most important thing is how you feel about yourself. Because every time you choose to walk away from something that disrespects you, you are reinforcing your own value. You are proving to yourself that you are not afraid to stand alone rather than stay in something that diminishes you. And that is where true confidence is built, not in what you hold on to, but in what you are strong enough to let go of. You love yourself first, fully and unapologetically. Let me tell you the truth that changes everything. If you don't love yourself first, you will spend your life accepting things that look like love but feel like pain. Because without self-love, you don't have a clear standard for how you should be treated. You start confusing attention with care, words with commitment, and temporary feelings with something real. And before you know it, you're holding on to situations that drain you, hoping they will turn into something they were never meant to be. That's what happens when you look for love outside of yourself before building it within. You begin to rely on someone else to give you what you should already be giving yourself: validation, security, and a sense of worth. And the moment that person pulls back, changes, or fails to meet your expectations, everything inside you starts to shake. You question yourself, you overthink, you wonder what you did wrong. But the real issue is not them. It's the lack of foundation within you. Because when you truly love yourself, you don't lose your sense of identity just because someone else enters or exits your life. You don't depend on their presence to feel complete. You don't beg for consistency because you naturally align yourself with people who can give it. Self-love is not just a feeling, it's a decision you make every single day. It's in the way you talk to yourself when things go wrong. It's in the boundaries you set when something doesn't feel right. It's in the standards you refuse to lower just to keep someone around. It's choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and respect over temporary satisfaction. And let me make this clear. Loving yourself unapologetically means you stop seeking permission to be who you are. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. You stop over-explaining your needs, your boundaries, and your expectations. You understand that the right people will meet you where you are, and the wrong ones will naturally fall away, and you make peace with that. Because self-love requires you to be okay with not being liked by everyone. It requires you to accept that choosing yourself might disappoint some people, but it will always protect you. And when you start operating from that level of self-respect, everything around you begins to shift. You no longer chase validation, you attract it. You no longer tolerate disrespect, you remove yourself from it. You no longer question your worth, you embody it. And that energy is undeniable. It shows in your confidence, your presence, your decisions. It shows in how you walk away from anything that doesn't align with your values. It shows in how you prioritize your growth, your peace, and your happiness without guilt. And here's the powerful part. When a man encounters a woman who truly loves herself, he has no choice but to adjust his behavior accordingly. Because he can see that she is not dependent, not easily shaken, and not willing to settle for less than she deserves. He understands that being part of her life is not a guarantee, it's a privilege. And that realization makes him step up, not because she demanded it, but because her energy requires it. But even if he doesn't, even if he chooses not to meet that level, it doesn't break her. It doesn't lower her value. It simply confirms that he is not aligned with the life she is building. And she moves forward without losing herself in the process. That is the power of loving yourself first. fully and unapologetically. It is the foundation that everything else stands on. Because when you have that, you don't just attract better treatment. You create a life where anything less is no longer an option. Closing, know your worth and never settle again at the end of the day. It all comes back to one simple truth. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you set your standards, stop chasing, master your emotions, build your own life, walk away when needed, and love yourself fully, you step into a different level of power. You're no longer hoping to be chosen. You become the one worth choosing. And the right man won't question your value, he'll recognize it. So stand tall, know your worth, and never settle for less than the respect, effort, and love you truly deserve. Till us folk.